Is Zendaya the biggest movie star under 35, Cody?
Under 35. Ooh. I mean, who are even the big movie stars these days? Not too many people. I mean, I'd say it's her or Timmy Chalamet, right?
Well, yeah, it really leads us into an interesting conversation today. I'll throw out Margot Robbie. I think it's easy to forget is still under 35, just barely, but she's been
Young girl.
around for a while. And I think if you look at like Barbie last year, and like the power that she has, she's in a really strong position as like both a star and a producer. But then yeah, Timothy Chalamet, Zendaya, Tom Holland. Does he have the? Is he the guy? I don't know. Sydney
Tom's not
Sweeney is
him.
an interesting skyrocket here in the last couple months. I don't think if you asked either of us the question, we would say that 6 months ago. But anyone but you was the biggest hit of last year for like an original romance. It's crazy.
Yeah, it's big on Netflix. I actually checked it out. Not a big fan of Sydney Sweeney in that movie, so I might disagree with you on that side of things. But it's an interesting question. I mean, I feel like Zendaya, she really hasn't been in that much yet. Um,
Not a lot of movies.
I mean, the stuff that she is in is absolutely popping. So I think it's a good argument.
Now, of course, she opened the film Challengers this weekend. Kind of really the first movie she's ever opened as a solo act. Um, but like you said, she's been in a lot of movies as like a member of the ensemble. Obviously, two Dune movies, three Spider-Man movies. Those six movies all have been huge, high box office grossers, over $100 million domestic box office. So she's very present. She's also just like extremely well known with people of our age and younger. She's obviously a Disney Channel star, like you and I were both aware. Like we grew up at the same time as Shake It Up was on the air. Her and Bella Thorne, dancing it up on Disney Channel. But she has managed to take this like extreme celebrity status and catapult it into true like acting stardom. And I think Challengers, while you and I may not have loved the film, totally can agree that she's pretty solid in that. And this is like a big step forward for her.
I think it's a great point too. I think it is extremely difficult to go from being like a Disney Channel star to actually becoming like a relevant movie star in the modern age. I think like the only other example I can even think of is like Ariana Grande, but she went into a
I mean,
different.
Austin Butler, technically, I guess,
Yeah, I guess that's true. I mean, I wasn't a big Disney Channel guy, so I'm no expert, but I do agree. I think just her rise, I mean, even her music career, Replay, great song. Roll that clip right now. But, it is crazy. I mean, also she was not really in the first Dude, so I don't count that. But she's amazing. I think she definitely deserves a ton more opportunities in leading roles like Challengers, especially after kind of seeing the movie. And yeah, I mean, we'll get into like I didn't love it. I definitely liked it. I think a little bit more than you, but I think it's undeniable that like all the performances and especially Zendaya was kind of off the charts and definitely my favorite thing about the movie.
this film opened to $15 million domestic, which is modest, but this is a rated R adult drama. Like this is a movie that is specifically geared for people of our age or even older to go into theaters and see. And you really don't get a lot of those. Like I said, Anyone But You is kind of a highlight. Saltburn, in a way, kind of fits into that mold of an adult psychosexual drama. And then you have like No Hard Feelings last year with Jennifer Lawrence, but like these things are rare. That's obviously more of a comedy. These adult hard R movies are pretty rare, so it's at least cool to see that, and especially Zendaya becoming like a full fledged actress opening a movie. This is a big one.
And I agree too. I feel like the last couple of years, sort of maybe this subgenre hasn't been as prevalent, which I feel like especially in today's, age, if you
There's
kind
been
of
a bit of chastity in film as of late.
yeah, sex is down. Don't tell Oppenheimer. But yeah, I don't know. I feel like more of these movies should happen just because, like you said, I feel like if you market it like at us, at our demographic, like this or Saltburn, I think you're gonna make a lot of money. So I'm glad it opened like pretty decently. And yeah, I don't really like clumping in like the rom-coms from last year,
Yeah.
sort of in the same category. It's kind of like the we've done episodes in the past and like the pure comedies are almost dead. I feel like rom-coms are getting to that point as well, where like the quality can differ, but we still get like two or three pumped out a year. But I do like this kind of subgenre of just like drama, maybe, aimed at a little bit younger people. I think that has a lot more kind of, buyability, if that's a word. Definitely not.
Yeah, and I mean it's Zendaya at the forefront, but obviously you have Mike Weiss, Josh O'Connor, and you have Luca Guadagnino,
Yeah, Luca.
a director. I mean, Call Me by Your Name, of course, huge hit with a young demographic, Timothy Chalamet led movie, and then Bones and All, a movie we've covered on this podcast. This movie, if you look at the poster, his name is the biggest one on it. Luca Guadagnino's Challengers, right? Being marketed for young people, and it was saw by young people, and I think it was a hit. And the reason movies like this can exist and I think are really viable right now is that they have a big second life on streaming. Like this movie will hit Amazon Prime, and people will watch it. And I don't know if you know realize this, but Amazon Prime added fucking ads, Kody, so they're making bank off of people now. It's a tough world we live in.
I didn't even realize it. I figured all streaming services have ads by now.
we're,
I
we're back, dude. We're so back to fucking cable TV. It's incredible.
That's tough. But yeah, Luke is him. I mean, obviously our Bones and All episode, I think we're both, pretty high on him just as a director. And I think that definitely translates to this movie as well. I mean, he's kind of becoming one of my favorite just working people in Hollywood today. And he really hasn't done that much, which is really, really exciting. So the nice thing about him is his casts do not miss either. I guess other than Armie Hammer, but he was still good in that movie. But I mean, he finds like all the young talent. I didn't even know like these other two guys. Like I said, I think Mike Feist and then
West Side Story, you know.
something O'Connor was in The Crown, I think, or something, right?
Yeah,
But
he another movie La Chimera that is recently come out, another kind of indie movie. He's on the rise. He's an up and coming guy, but keep the eye out for all
oh, I mean,
everybody.
both those guys, just like the chemistry between those three actors, I thought was off the charts, and I thought those two specifically like surprised me as being really good. So I mean, definitely credit Luca with that, but he knows how to find some young talent in his movies.
We don't want to spoil anything because we want people to go check this one out in theaters. Definitely worth a watch. But just real quick, what did you think about just the movie in general? What were some problems, or what did you like?
I did like most of it, if I'm being honest. I have like very specific things that I disliked a lot about it, which kind of brings my maybe my overall feeling about it down. But in general, I think it's a good sports movie, I think. And I'm a sucker for a sports movie. I didn't go into it like expecting as much sort of tennis being like the main focus of the story. It's kind of 50-50. It's like tennis and then it's three, relationships that we're dealing with. But I thought it took some interesting just like angles from a sports movie that I was not expecting. So props to it there. And then yeah, some specifics, excuse me, that I don't like. Again, not spoilers, but just the score in general, I wasn't a fan
You got
of.
to be
I
a
think
house music guy, and we're not.
I kind of am. I definitely enjoy house music, but if you've seen our lobster episode, it's something similar to that
It's
that I don't.
repetitive. You
Yeah,
hate the
and
repetition.
then kind of the edit with it as well. I'm not a big fan of, but I did want to talk about the score a little bit because I know it's your boys.
Resner and
Trent Reznor.
Ross. Yeah.
Do you think that was them or do you think that was a Luca decision?
Listen, I think this movie is heavily influenced by the work of David Fincher, from the Resner Ross score to a lot of the camera work we're seeing. I do think the repetitive nature gets a little old, and the thing you said about the edit, this is a movie that jumps all around through timelines to uh, the pre-COVID 2019 present that this movie's set in, because we're in that age of movies. And then, back 8 years and back 13 years and forward at 6 p.m. and 3 a.m. in Atlanta. This is a movie that jumps around a lot, but it's extremely watchable. The performances are great. And the direction of the actual tennis is very interesting. Like, it's very exciting. I'm not really a tennis fan. I think if I liked tennis more, I'd probably enjoy this movie even more. But like, every possible way to shoot a tennis match you can think of, Luca Guadagnino does. Like, it is all in the entire 2 hour and 11-minute runtime, which it doesn't really feel like. Um, he hits every possible angle of it, going inside the ball, inside the racket, underneath the tennis court, all around. It is truly incredible, and it is a ride. Maybe you'll get a little motion sick. Take a pill before you hop in, but it reminds me of two movies, and this is what I'll say, that
Hmm.
came out last year. First one is Creed 3.
Okay.
It's almost if you saw that movie, the approach it took to boxing was almost like this anime beyond life like approach to like the way it's going to shoot the sport and create it. And this one doesn't go quite there with like the CGI other worlds, but it does expand what you could possibly see as being real the sport is shot. And then the other movie is a movie called Passages, Kody, which I don't know if you too familiar with. Got Ben Whishaw from the movie Women Talking, Franz Wagowski, and Adele Exarchopoulos. And it's international film about a gay couple that has a woman come in and spice things up, and they're pulled apart, and there's a lot of energy. And I think honestly the approach to the relationship, that movie is like an NC-17 like hard sexual drama movie. I think the approach that movie takes, I like a little bit more in the world of sex and relationships, but this one, obviously all the sports stuff really appeals to me as well. So I'll throw out there Creed 3 and Passages. That is what Challengers is.
I love that. I think it's a cool balance too. I mean, those are two movies that I would think that you would never kind of even, think to put them together. So I like that comparison a lot. And going off a couple other things you said, I mean, going back to the edit too, I feel like just a rewatch of this movie, like I would probably enjoy it a little bit more just because it's throwing you all over the place on the first watch. And like I said, it's not like an overly long movie, but it is kind of convoluted. And where we start out, I feel like would be, such a different place in my mind on a second watch versus like a first watch. So I thought that was interesting. And I mean, the way it was marketed, like that trailer is like very focused on the three-way. Um, that's not really the focus of the movie, I don't think. There's no like egregious sex scenes. Obviously, like I said, it's about these characters' relationships. But I think this movie very like easily could have gone into that N-17, category, and it chose not to, which I thought was a decent choice in my mind.
Definitely recommend people go check the movie out. Playing in theaters now. It's on Jackson's team, Abby's team, one of
On Jackson.
those two in that wonderful couple, their team. So go support it at the box office.
I think it's still going to lose the Kong in the box office, didn't it?
Oh yeah, I mean Godzilla X Kong, dude, that thing is an international hit, rolling over to 500 million.
I should have kept it. I should have traded.
And speaking of an international hit today, Kody, we're talking about Dune Part 2. Welcome back to Kody and Korbin Have a Podcast. It's another Zendaya picture. We did the new Challengers review, a little short mini review, and now we're discussing Dune Part 2.
It's okay. I'm here. I'm here. It's been a while since you've had one of those nightmares. Tell me, what was it about?
It's only fragments. Nothing's clear. You've been fighting the Harkonnens for decades.
Look!
My family's been fighting them for centuries.
Your blood comes from dukes and great houses. Here, we're equal. What we do for the benefit of all.
Well, I'd very much like to be equal to you.
Maybe I'll show you the way.
Deal with this prophet. Send assassins.
Arthur. He's psychotic.
I see possible futures all at once. And in so many futures, our enemies prevail. But I do see a way. There is a narrow way through.
I'm Corbin Zvokel, and of course, my Spice Head co-host, Kody Webb, is here. Kody, we're back with a new season. How's it feeling?
I'm very excited to be back, man. We've had a nice little layoff in between seasons, but I'm definitely ready to get back to potting. We're 6 seasons down, and over the off season here, actually, I finished up Community. So I'll drop a reference. 6 seasons in a movie?
Coming?
We'll just go 6 seasons in another season, I think.
Yeah.
I'm jacked to be back, man. How you doing?
I'm doing great, man. It has been a while, so I think we got a lot of takes built up to discuss about Dune, about movies in general. I'm sure I'm going to fire a couple of shots at things we've watched recently, and I'm excited, man.
I'm Jack, bro. I mean, I've kind of been grinding in the off season here too, so I'm excited to be back at it.
Doing numbies.
March Madness is over, so yeah, I'm kind of a movie addict now. So maybe this podcast will be better. Who knows?
Let's get started with our first category that we normally do. Why?
Out of everybody you could have chose, why did you pick me?
And this was the season premiere, and I always like to snag the pick for the season premiere. And this is, of course, a little bit of a throwback to what was that, season 3 episode that we did on the first Dune,
A while
which
ago.
you were very skeptical on. You were uninterested in watching it. You kind of waited for a while, and I really had to engage with you to Kody. You got to check out Dune. Dune is good. Got you to watch it, and then we did the episode on it. I've been really anticipating the release of Dune Part 2. When it came out, I saw it once, twice, wanted to kind of just sit with it for a little bit and then really, talk about it here now after we've kind of had a chance to really let our thoughts digest.
Yeah, I think the hype, just revolving this movie when it came out was pretty awesome to see, honestly, just from something coming out in a new release, especially in kind of this sci-fi fantasy genre. But yeah, I mean, throwing back to our, like you said, original Dune episode, I mean, I like the first one. I still stand by it. I think it's just kind of okay, especially in Denis' catalog. I think it's like other than Enemy, my least favorite Denis movie. So I don't hold it in that high of a regard with him. But I mean, when this came out, it was dynamite instantly. I like that we sat back a little bit though, because I mean, everybody was kind of talking about it at the same time. So I feel like now that we've kind of gathered our thoughts a little bit, we can kind of have a cool perspective on it.
We actually did it, Kody, for our season 3 premiere.
Ooh,
It
okay.
was the original Dune episode.
Yeah, that was a very long time ago. Shout out to us. I mean, 3 seasons later, 4 seasons later.
Here we are. And this episode is releasing on May 4th, Kody. May the 4th be with you. And there's definitely a connection between this film and Star Wars. And I know from your Letterboxd review that this movie, the Dune text, the origins of Dune, the Frank Herbert novel, clearly influenced sci-fi for the next 60 years after its release. And it's really cool to see that kind of, appear on screen. And now we're talking about it today.
I mean, that was the biggest thing I want to mention off the top is the sort of genre blend of this movie is really, really cool. Like you mentioned, my Letterboxd view, I kind of say the same thing, but it is crazy from like a sci-fi fantasy fan of myself, seeing like all of these different components in this movie. Obviously, you have, like you said, I mean, there's a ton of Star Wars. That's completely obvious.
And George Lucas would say, actually, that there's not any similarities.
Of course he would. I mean, there's little stuff I think is definitely there. Game of Thrones, everyone's kind of going for, the Emperor, the throne.
Like swords.
There's, all these famous families that is, existing in the world. The Matrix element of it, where, Paul's the one. I mean, the Matrix is pretty religious, even in the second movies. So I think it takes a lot from that.
Yeah, I think my line to you was like, well, it's the Bible. So it's like, all text, where do we all come from?
It's got a good commentary on religion, I think, at least one I enjoyed. So kind of just combining all of that into one epic movie that is kind of maybe the start of sci-fi fantasy that I didn't even know was a start. I missed the origin. I saw, the 10 chapters after that. I think it's really cool just like piecing all this stuff together in my brain and kind of making an epic sci-fi movie for, 2024, which is something I'm here for every year. So yeah, I mean, I love this movie. We'll get into a ton of reasons why, but yeah, Denis really killed it with kind of bringing all these different elements together, I think.
Tell me about the first time you watched it, Kody. Do you remember?
So I just went back and picked out dates from my Letterboxd, basically. I feel like that's nice.
Beauty.
Yeah, so my first watch was March 1st. So I don't know when exactly this movie came out. I think I saw it like...
That was the weekend, yeah.
Yeah.
The end of February, March, yeah.
Okay, so I probably saw it like Sunday or Saturday during the day, but I remember it was still a pretty good crowd for opening weekend. And for me, I was pumped. Like, I don't get very excited about movies, so maybe it was hard for me to kind of process everything on my first watch, just because I didn't know what was coming, and it was so fast paced compared to the first one. But I did enjoy it a ton. I gave it 5 stars at that point. And then my second watch was actually just a couple days ago, April 30th. So I went basically 2 full months in between watches. I did go see it in theaters again. It was still playing at my local AMC and IMAX. So I went and checked it out on discount value day, which is awesome. And I mean, there's still a few people in the theater. Obviously, it wasn't as packed out as my first experience, but I think I had just as much fun. There's so much like little comedy moments in this as well that I really love from Denis. But yeah, just like seeing it on the big screen, I think was a must for a movie this scale. But talk to me about your experiences, man.
Well, you said you were hyped, and I was so hyped, and especially because this movie was delayed. We were supposed to get it last year, and then of course because of the strikes, it gets pushed to March of this year. I really liked the first movie, but the thing I said was like, this is half a movie, and like the second half of this could be the greatest thing of all time. Was kind of the mindset I had coming out of Dune 1. I think that's like my original Letterboxd review was like, this shit is gonna be crazy in 3 years. So the anticipation was there. I went for the first time when I was actually back home with my mom and sister at the Muncie IMAX. So, you know, a little smaller, but it was very good. And I really enjoyed it. And I had a fun time. But I think I just had set the expectations a little too high. And because it is just a lot, like you said, it's 245, but it's very fast paced in comparison to the original. It's throwing a lot of story at you, and there's a lot of complex character decisions that I think on first watch can be like, why is this happening? And if you just don't catch stuff, it's very easy to be like, okay, I don't think this all adds up, or I don't like these motivations. But then I think on a second and third watch, I've come to appreciate a lot of the decisions that both Denis made and like the source material makes with the characters. First watch, I will say my mom and sister were not as huge fans. My mom especially was like, man, this is crap. Yeah, I know she's a hater. Star Trek lover though. So
good taste. Good taste. Yeah.
The second time I saw this movie was the day of the Oscars at 8:30 in the morning. But we had to go to the IMAX 70 mil, the big time, you know, the film, the legit stuff. And it is truly incredible, like seeing it on a big screen like that. The visual effects, top to bottom in this film, look incredible. And then again, I saw it once yesterday. So May 1st, I went and caught it. So another, like, you know, like you said, 2 months later. And that was my favorite watch I think I've had. I just really, really enjoyed it in the theater. I think there was three of us, just three people alone, single, you know, rowing it, enjoying Dune. And I want to talk about that IMAX aspect of it, Kody, because IMAX has been a thing for a while. I remember very early theater memory for me is The Dark Knight Rises, seeing that in IMAX Indianapolis. But in the last really post pandemic, we'll say, IMAX has become huge and so pivotal to the ecosystem of filmmaking. So, like, what are your thoughts on what's going on with that?
I mean, it's definitely interesting, like there being a limited amount of screens that kind of is available for certain movies. I mean, I obviously like it that it's a lot more kind of, you know, in theaters these days, because I think it does make the experience a little bit better just from a visual standpoint. But I think they just need to keep expanding kind of the amount of screens that they have on a daily and monthly basis. Just because I think more and more movies these days are just absolutely beautiful and they deserve kind of that sort of format. But yeah, I mean, I'm a fan of it, obviously. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, you're right. We have the technology and these cameras now and the visual effects that's like it deserves to be seen on the biggest screen possible. And people are saying more and more, it's like if we're gonna go to a theater, I don't think you and I would necessarily agree with this, but it's like if you're gonna go to a theater, it has to be like worthwhile. So I'm only gonna see it in the nicest possible, and it's gonna be an event. It's gonna be when Oppenheimer comes out. I'm gonna see that in IMAX. It's gonna be when Barbie comes out. It's gonna be when the Eras Tour comes out. Like these are the things I'm gonna go see, like event based things. And I don't necessarily think that's 100% good for movies, but like that is where we're trending. They're trying to make these like premium events.
Yeah, I don't know if I would count the Eras Tour as an event personally, but
hey, it made a ton of money and it was a huge IMAX venture. Taking the Talking Heads documentary, A24, Stop Making Sense. They put that in IMAX last year. It's interesting to see the things that are becoming IMAX movies. Civil War, another A24 movie. Yes, it's a war movie, but that opened in IMAX. It was a big deal. They're putting the A24 films, you know, like Hereditary, Ex Machina, Uncut Gems back in IMAX as one night only events and these special marquee re-releases. Rich Gelfond is the CEO of IMAX, Kody. Ever heard the name?
No.
This guy is the kingmaker. He's the man who makes the decisions. He's the man who said, Tom Cruise, you get 1 week because you won't move, because Paramount won't move. So Oppenheimer, I committed. And like, there is this legitimate thing that's becoming more and more real where it's like every weekend is about getting the IMAX dates. And we saw it with Mickey 17, a movie that really doesn't make sense getting pushed to January, but they did it because it was an IMAX window during the lunar calendar. They could have it worldwide, or during the Lunar New Year, they could have it worldwide, hit Korea, hit all of Southeast Asia, and really make this a big event. This guy is controlling movies. He's in charge, and Mission Impossible didn't make a lot of money as a result of it.
Yeah, I still haven't seen it. So shout out to
Rich made that happen, Kody.
Rich robbed me of an IMAX experience. But yeah, I think that is super interesting too. Like I said, I mean, it's got to get to the point where we're just expanding the amount of screens, because if you can't put Mission Impossible in IMAX that much, then you're even missing out on a ton of smaller stuff that deserves it too.
To get a little nerdy on the financials here, and it all sucks because we live in a capitalistic, sucky society where this even has to be an option. But like right now, there's too many regular theaters. Like there's too many multiplexes open, but there's not enough IMAX screens. So it's this case of like, we could open more, like they want to put more IMAX screens and they're actively trying to do that. But like AMC also needs to probably close like 60 locations to even survive, or like, that's just a number, but like their financials, they filed for bankruptcy. Like it's a balancing act of that. Yes, they need more of these screens and they need to convert them, but they also don't need these theaters.
There are a lot of theaters in the country to be fair, but maybe there's some sort of program where we can just kind of, replace them with
IMAXs.
Yeah, I don't know. The big wigs, I'm sure, will do the wrong thing, but I don't know if there's a clear right answer with there either, which kind of sucks.
If you want to guarantee your movie gets the IMAX window, you use the IMAX film camera. So that's what made it happen for Oppenheimer. And that is what's guaranteeing it for Joker come October. That movie was shot on IMAX film, so you can see that in 70 mil.
It'll probably be beautiful. Is Todd Haynes coming back? I can't remember.
Todd Phillips, yes. Not Todd Haynes. Todd Haynes is director.
Todd Haynes too, actually.
May, December.
I don't like Todd Phillips that much. I'm a hater,
yeah,
but
it is Todd Phillips. Lady Gaga, of course. I'm sure we'll talk about that movie.
Oh
yeah. Initial thoughts on Dune. I know we've already kind of gotten into it, Kody.
I'm too damn bad if you don't like my initial clinical reaction.
Anything else you want to hit on before we move in?
I mean, we hit most of it. I kind of want to talk about how the pacing was super fast as well. And you'd mentioned before too, but on my first watch, I did miss like a couple little details of like, oh, that was a key plot point that I kind of just didn't think was super important until I was like thinking about the movie more. And then on the rewatch, I noticed a couple of stuff too. So I think some stuff can still go over my head, which is always humbling. And then, I just want to mention too, I mean, another Denis flick we got here. I mean, we've covered most of his filmography at this point. I believe it's everything other than like Enemy and that Ensondees movie or whatever you say. Oh, and Blade Runner. I think Blade Runner we have to do down the road.
No Sicario either. I mean, we're like halfway there.
We've done a lot, which I just wanted to mention. And I think it's the first time too where we've done the first movie and then the sequel in live time. So I think that's
yeah. We're a big like second in the series kind of guys. Yeah. But, we're actually following the path linearly, and hey, maybe when Messiah comes out in a few years, we can hit that one too.
I think we have to. So I love that. Did you have any other initial thoughts?
I mean, talking about Denis, Arrival is a great example. Just his sense of scale, like it's so impressive. Like whether it's the sandworms or like the amount of people in a scene in this movie, just like his decision of when to cut to an establishing shot or how to frame the, it's just so incredible. And I don't think there's a filmmaker, even Christopher Nolan, who has a grasp of that ability, especially using like CGI to like grasp scale and what magnitude really looks like and power. I watched Godzilla x Kong, dude. Those dudes are so big. Like those motherfuckers are large, but you can't really tell because they're next to each other. Like, yes, there's a scene with the pyramid. It's in the trailer, whatever. But like, even then there's no, like, it just doesn't feel there's no sense of scale. It fails miserably. And Denis is the best.
Yeah, that's why Godzilla minus one is 10 times better.
Yes.
But I agree. I think the epicness, just kind of as a broad term, is amazing in this movie. I mean, we'll go into a bunch of the good, but like you said, specific shots. So there's like, it feels like a million people on screen, and Timmy's just walking through them like as slowly as possible. I think is one of my favorite shots in the entire movie. And I mean, the fact that we have people riding onto worms into battle and it looks realistic and you believe it and you bought in, I think it is all credit to Denis. Just the visual style is unbelievable, I think.
Think about the spaceships in Arrival and just like that image of them on the landscape. And it's just so subtle, but it says everything. And this movie has tons of images just like that. This movie was a huge hit, like we said, a huge hit with young people. I think opening weekend, 46% of the people who went to see it were between 18 and 35. And then also just like this movie is the next generation of stars. Like all these young people, Austin Butler, Florence Pugh, Zendaya, Timothy Chalamet, every single one of like these are the people now, like it really feels like in a way like a graduation or like a come to Jesus. Like these are the guys, and it's cool to see.
Sure, Christopher Walken, Javier Bardem,
and then, yeah, you've got the old guard as well, sure, but like I'm just mean like this is a young class of next people.
I think Dave deserves to be in that conversation as well, but yeah,
he got
Also, I'm not bought in on Austin Butler yet. We'll talk about him. I'm a massive fan in this flick, but that Elvis voice still pisses me off. But yeah, I mean, Timmy, Florence Pugh, and Zendaya is a stacked cast, and then when you have AB in his prime, Dave in his prime, I think it's pretty awesome to see. And like you said, these are going to be people working in Hollywood for a very long time. So I think even 10 years down the road, it's going to be cool to see all of them in kind of one massive project together. Even Anya Taylor-Joy too. Shout out to her.
Shout out to the surprise appearance of Anya Taylor-Joy. That's a fun
spoiler alert, I guess. Yeah, we're going spoiler.
I mean, the whole thing is spoiler. But why will you not forgive Austin Butler, but you never say anything about Tom Hanks? No shit.
Well, I mean, Tom already sunk his own ship after Pinocchio with me. So he's way down in the well on my eyes. But I did see Elvis kind of recently too. I hadn't seen it, I don't think, before this movie. I mean, he's good as Elvis. Like he's not bad by any means. But just like it's still the same opinion of like the fact that he's still doing that voice like years after just irks me the wrong way. And I think he keeps it for a couple movies. In this movie, he does a really cool thing where he kind of impersonates Stellan Skarsgård, which I think is a fun choice. But I think maybe he's somebody too who just likes to play with his voice. So I think maybe as we go along in his acting career, he's just gonna have a ton of weird stuff. And I think eventually he'll kind of jump the shark with it, maybe do something like really high pitched and funny. But I'm here for it. I think he's a good actor, but I think he just makes strange choices sometimes.
I like that shot you just called. We'll clip that and save it for the future.
Yeah.
Austin Butler.
I won't take too long.
Next appearing in The Bike Riders, which was another movie that was supposed to come out last year. We'll see what voice he's doing there.
I think
also Mike Feist.
Oh, see, the girl from Meister, Carey Mulligan is into that too, I think, and Tom Hardy. I could be wrong. Maybe it's Judy Comer.
Yeah, it's Jodie Comer.
Looks similar. But I saw the trailer for that in the theater one time. I was like, oh, I remember picking Tom Hardy for an Oscar pick one year. So he better be good in it.
Could be coming 2025.
Doesn't look like it.
Let's talk about the people in this film with roll credits. We're bringing it back.
Say that again.
It's fantastic.
Yes, it is. Guys, I got it.
From a previous season,
Cody. I love roll credits.
And I want to start by hitting that cast list, hitting that billing order, and kind of in comparison to the first movie. Timothy Chalamet, lead build in this one. Of course, lead build in the first movie.
He's pretty damn good, but I would think he's going to be the top billing here.
Number 2 for Dune Part 2 is Zendaya, and she was 8th build previously.
Was she with or did she not?
She was like basically last, second to last.
She basically wasn't even in the movie, if we're being honest. But I think
she was in the marketing though, Cody. That was I think that was most of her paycheck was that we're gonna like use your face to sell this film. And
I mean, I don't blame him. She is one of the most attractive people alive today, so I'd probably do the same thing. But yeah, I mean the screen time and definitely the story is 100% revolving around her in this movie. So I love that she's basically top billing as well.
Number three, Rebecca Ferguson. She was actually second billed previously. Um, Makes sense. She's very prominent. She's, the second hand to Paul, especially through the first half of this film.
I would expect that she doesn't have as much screen time in this one, and especially after her character goes through her whole transformation. I think her screen time definitely dwindles a lot because she kind of just loses herself a lot in that moment, which kind of sucks from a character perspective, but also makes her, more interesting at the same time. So I think she had a lot of fun, a lot more fun, I think, than the last movie, just with
Yeah.
different performances that she could do. So I like her in the 3 spot.
Josh Brolin, four, stayed four. He's hanging in there.
Yeah.
Not in this movie a ton. I honestly thought he died in the last one. Was pretty surprised to find out that he was returning. But it's good to see. Number five, a new entrant, Austin Butler, of course, not previously billed. He takes number five. Florence Pugh is six. There to do a lot of exposition, but she looks wonderful while doing it. Dave Bautista gets knocked down. He's coming in at seventh. He was sixth prior.
He's got limited screen time, so I think that's a good mark for him.
He does a lot with what he has. And he's ahead of Christopher Walken, who doesn't get doesn't get a with. He's just eighth billed in this film, Kody. Any thoughts on that?
I am kind of surprised by that, honestly. But you do have a couple, hard hitters that definitely deserve an and a with. And I mean, it's not like Christopher Walken does anything, special from anything else he's done in this movie. So maybe if he was like actually acting, I would be mad. But I think it's a good spot for him.
Next up on the poster originally was Stephen McGinley Henderson, but that man was totally cut from the movie, so not even there. But the original marketing was saying, hey, he was going to be there. Then Léa Seydoux coming in 10th, brand new. Margot Finwing. She's there to allure Butler. She does great.
Yeah, I mean, she's in like 2 scenes. Yeah, drop her billing, but I do like her. Maybe she'll
Actress of acclaim, international star. Gets the French in the seats.
She's like a Bond girl, I think. But I think she's a good actress. But maybe she'll be, more prevalent in the next one.
Skarsgård was fifth billed, gets the with credit.
Yeah, I think that's his screen time as well is definitely dwindled in the second one, which I'm disappointed by because I think he is really, really good in this role, and it's such a strange character. But yeah, definitely deserved with. I love Stellan, most underrated actor.
Charlotte Rampling also gets a with credit. She is the lead Bene Gesserit woman.
Shout out to her. I was gonna make an age check. Yeah, she's cool.
Older actress that was in movies before that I'm not too familiar with, to be entirely honest.
Probably like a classic age actress, but I'm no history buff. So shout out to her. I mean, she's good again. She doesn't have a ton to do, but that scene where Timmy yells silence at her is pretty iconic. So shout out to her.
Trying to find a movie that Assassin's Creed. Oh, nice. She was in 2016's Assassin's Creed. There we go. We should have known. Exactly. Sorry. That's why she gets the with cran. She's great in this movie. The Bene Gesserit, Bad Ladies, and then finally Javier Bardem gets the and credit, which he had in the original film as well.
I think he easily could have been like third billing in this movie, but I think he's good in the and role. I'm surprised that you said that he's an and in the first film because he pretty much has no screen time. Him and Zendaya, I feel like, have about the same. But I think Javier is maybe the breakout star that I didn't expect in this movie. So definitely deserved and.
He should have got the and Javier Bardem as Stilgar. That would have been the real good stuff.
That would have been electric.
And then on top of that, Kody, the roll credits moment in this film when he finally says Dune. What do you think about that? What do you think about? I mean, it's a very pivotal scene.
Yeah, I think it's awesome. And there was a moment in the first one where you got a little Dune in there too, but it's definitely pulled out. I believe
Oscar Isaac says it, right?
I think so. Yeah, I think they're just talking about the planet. Obviously, its original name. And again, obviously that kind of comes back here when Timmy making a massive speech and kind of capping it off with, these guys, took their planet, renamed it. We're bringing back the OGs. We're taking it back. So I think just his strategy there to get the long live the fighters chants just going and get them pumped up, I think was really fun.
Yeah, that's one way to put it. Fun. It is an incredible scene. It's the one that like right after the movie, everyone was identifying as like, oh shit, when Timothy Chalamet does this scene from the trailer and he's sitting in the chair and he's looking at everybody, it's crazy. He speaks the Fremen language, which they created for this film. They were very specific about that. I think that those moments specifically really hit hard. But like you said, it's a callback to the first film. His father tells him that's what it was called, right? There's all these little Easter eggs and nuggets, and we can get into the good, the bad, and the ugly. The first one of this setup of where he's getting this information and how he's learning to control these people and get to this end goal. So that, that's a very early one. Like he studies this planet and then, fits into the prophecy. Something that's great about this movie, you go see it at an AMC and you sit down and you see Nicole and she says, we come to this place for magic, to go somewhere we've never gone before. And you know what, Kody, this movie shows you fucking shit you've never seen before. That's incredible. Like the mines that blow up the harvester. Have you ever seen anything in a movie quite like that? And then of course the Harkonnens in the opening eclipse battle when they take flight.
I'm not back at all. Yeah, there's so many scenes to delve into here, but yeah, I think like you said, even like the spice rates at the beginning is just something I feel like I haven't seen a ton in movies. Obviously you have like rocket launchers and other guns and stuff. I feel like all the weapons are really cool and specialized for like this certain planets. And even like the different legs on those things, like being able to lift up and move and like blocking your kind of perspective is cool. But I mean, I agree too. Going back to just like him learning the Fremen culture, I think that's basically like the first hour or so of this movie is just kind of him trying to get his footing with these people, trying to. I mean, they're in survival mode off the bat in the first half hour, and then after that, kind of like you said, fulfilling the prophecy and becoming the one here to lead them to his ultimate goal, which is kind of to get back on top, and avenge his dad. But like you said, they kind of use that Messiah angle really interestingly. And Zendaya is definitely centered in that as well as being the one like, you know, this sort of prophecy was something that is, made up to kind of keep us down. But also at the same time, like Florence Pugh's point being like, nothing in theory should be surviving, in this climate, but people, when they have faith, they can be dangerous. So it's kind of like it's going both ways, and I think obviously it's helping fuel the fire and allowing them to fight back. But Timmy is definitely kind of wrangling his way in and definitely going for exactly what his plan is going forward. So I think those two kind of the love story is done well, but also just like their altering ideologies on the big picture is really interesting as well.
So much I agree with you on there, and it's hard to say where to even start. The messianic kind of angle, the chosen one, the one you mentioned, the Matrix. I know we've talked about this on the podcast before. It's a hot take. I like the Matrix too. I like the ideas there of like, is it real? Maybe there's been we've had a lot of you just like this, Neo. This shit's happened multiple times. Like it's a repetition, right? Are you really the Messiah? And this movie, it's not necessarily like the hero's journey. It's a turn on that head. It's a very complicated political story with a ton of deep layers about like this guy who's faced with this impossible choice, and he chooses in the end religious zealotry and fanaticism and starts a fucking jihad, like a holy war. And it's very calculated, and he's a likable character and he's charismatic, but that inherently is like part of the character and the fact that like the people like him and see him as their hero and their Messiah. And it's really great. And I love it. I mean, it's not great, it's terrible, right? But it's a cool examination. It's not a hero story you typically get, right? Star Wars is a very simplified version of Dune, right? Like it's just about the guy who's the one and is the hero and is, right? He's there to solve it all. Have to decide, what to believe. Is Paul the Messiah? Is he the savior of these people? Is he going to lead them to paradise at the end? Spoiler alert, probably not if we get into the next movie and the next text, Dune Messiah. But I'll throw it over to you, Kody.
I think that's a great point too. It's almost like a more realistic Star Wars. I think that's where the Game of Thrones overlap comes in, of like that darkness and everybody kind of trying to cling on to power. It kind of brings those two things together and just makes these characters a bit more interesting and, like I said, a bit more realistic because, like I said, I mean, Timmy the entire movie is like, I don't want to go south. I've seen visions and I know this only leads to dark things, but it comes to the point where it's you go south and you win this war, or you stay here and all your family and friends die. So he's kind of stuck in a super hard place, and then he goes, like you said, kind of full blown villain in a sense. I think that's definitely the arc where he is going to end up, not knowing anything about the books. But I would not mess with Paul Atreides at this moment. That blue stuff is it's got some special stuff in there. I'm not sure, but something I noticed too that I guess kind of just like went over my head in the first time. I didn't realize like Rebecca Ferguson and Anya Taylor-Joy were like communicating so freely. It's like Anya Taylor-Joy is like what, a few months old, and she's freaking a super genius.
Yeah, I mean, if you, depending on where life starts, Kody, yeah. I mean, she's in the womb. She's not even a born child, and she's an embryo, and she's communicating.
She's talking for Rebecca Ferguson, I feel like, for the latter third of this movie, which is terrifying, I think. But yeah, I mean, like you're saying, there's so many just like different cool angles and so many small details of stuff that I think even, on another rewatch of this movie, we'll keep picking up stuff as we go along, which I think is really, really cool.
When George Lucas attempted to do politics in Star Wars, that's when he really failed. When we get into trade routes and federations, but like somehow in this text and in the handling of Denis and like a well-crafted story, it works a lot more successfully. Now, there's a lot of stuff cut about like the guild navigators and space travel and like some deep weed shit, but like this is still very much a movie. Like you said, it's families plotting, it's political decision after political decision to gain control and gain power. They're constantly talking about having control. The person who can destroy something is the person who has control over it with the spice. So it's a huge theme in this movie. And it really, the movie, I think, walks the tightrope of, is Paul good? Is Paul bad? Like you said, Johnny Zendaya's character is kind of a POV for us at the end of like, okay, she leaves. We have somebody that we can be like, this is fucked up with and follow kind of her lead. Whereas like if she stays as an audience member, it's a little bit harder to be like, this seems, I guess this is right. So very clearly she leaves, which is a distinct change from the original text.
I do love the way they went with her character, and what you said too about the power of kind of being able to destroy this is the ultimate power. I mean, even opening text before the studio's logos pop up is power over spice is power over all. So I think that is 100% one of the main messages that Denis wanted you to kind of have coming out of this is just what is real power? When you kind of control something that, people think, gives you power, that kind of gives you a lot. And I kind of wish too, I mean, I guess this is more going into like the bad and stuff, but I don't really care. But I mean, I kind of wish we got another like half hour or so in this movie, maybe seeing like a little bit more with like the great houses and then a couple of those scenes that got cut and everything. Because I think it is a little bit, too fast paced in a sense. I don't know. There's got to be like a 3 hours director's cut that'll be coming out here soon, right? I would think.
He said no director's cuts. He's not a director's cut guy. If something gets cut, it is gone. No deleted scenes on the DVD, nothing.
I don't buy it. I mean, they're going to try and squeeze as much money out of it as they can. So we'll see. He probably has never made a director's cut. So that's probably why he's saying that. But yeah, that is fun.
I think like if you take the time at which this book was written and like the think about, the next 40, 50 years of American military intervention in the Middle East and this search for oil and this desire to control oil. There's a lot of direct comparisons you can draw, or at least there were some signs being sought here, right? Like spice is not necessarily a direct allegory for oil because there's this mystical religious drug psychedelic element to it, and that's also where the 60s come in, right? It's a mix between a drug and it's basically like if you took shrooms and oil and it's one thing. It's amazing, right? All powerful.
It controls all the spaceships, right?
But like it's very clear that the culture is feels very Middle Eastern influenced, and it's a desert planet, and like all of that stuff. And it's about the meddling of the the white person in these countries and charismatic leaders. And he specifically was maybe like pointing some eyes at like JFK and being like, hey, this guy, he's just so charming, but like, is he actually doing anything? And I don't necessarily agree with like everything he had to say politically, but like I think the main message is skepticism, and that's something that I can really get behind and think about is just like you can't put all your faith in one singular powerful figure, no matter who it is. Like you have to be asking questions of government, of religion, of people who are trying to control things.
And I think, I mean, the way that it is too, I think religion is obviously kind of in focus, but then behind it all, it's sort of like the real reasonings is like you said exactly. I mean, native people getting pushed out of their own land because their planet just happens to have like this massive resource that everybody wants, which you can see a bunch in America's past, which I think is telling
And
of that.
present.
Yeah, and present, obviously, never ends. But I think the religious aspects are super interesting. Like I said, the one specifically, I think, is probably my favorite iteration of this sort of trope that we see a ton, just because there is so much commentary on it and there's so much other stuff that is important other than that. I don't know. I mean, do you even think like he is the Messiah here? I feel like he's not. I feel like he has all these details that have led him to this point and is helping him kind of, encourage people. But I feel like the propaganda from Rebecca Ferguson and then like his couple speeches at the end kind of just seals it. But I don't know specifically at this moment. I mean, I guess he drank the whale piss or whatever, the worm
Worm
piss,
piss.
but I don't know.
I
It's still up for debate, which is fun.
I mean, I think the truth is like there is no Messiah, right? Like it's all this legend that was specifically crafted to control these people. The Bene Gesserit have been meddling. Now, there's also you have the Mahdi, which is the Fremen uh, Messiah figure, but then you also have this Kwisatz Haderach, which is what the like Bene Gesserit people are trying to create, which is what Rebecca Ferguson tells Timmy is like, hey, well, you're a guy, and when you drink the worm piss, like you will become this. And it's this whole idea of like connecting space and time and be able to see the future. And he's kind of just a guy who gets some fucking superpowers and then like uses that power to control people and say he's God. But that doesn't make him God. Like, like it's all meddling and I find that so interesting.
I do love Bene Gesserit as well. Just like the behind the scenes people. That definitely gives me a ton of like Game of Thrones vibes of like just old grandmas like pulling the strings behind the scenes and nobody has any idea they're doing it.
They said like 90 centuries they've been planning the bloodlines. And also,
Yeah.
Cody, there's a Bene Gesserit TV show coming to
All right.
Max.
Which I will probably watch, to be fair. Is Leah Seydoux in it? Probably
I
not.
think it's like a way back.
Prequel. Nice. Okay. Well, maybe I won't watch it then. But some other stuff. Definitely wanted to mention the good here, kind of just jumping around. I mean, I kind of want to talk about Austin Butler a little bit here. I mean, kind of transitioning into the second hour of the movie, I guess, too. I mean, his character introduction is so badass. Just us going to, what's their species called?
Oh, the Harkonnen planet. I mean, they're just people. They're not just like that's the interesting thing. Is like in the books, they're just like guys,
Yeah.
But
in the original Dune movie too, they look completely different. They look gross in David Lynch's version. But the design I think is so cool with just their kind of black sun and then how it kind of reflects off of their obviously kind of pale skin. Just visually, I think on that planet specifically is probably my favorite style of the entire movie. And then, like I said, I mean, Austin Butler's a complete psychopath and is just having so much fun. I don't think he's really taking himself that seriously in this role either. But compared to Dave, I mean, he is definitely the superior brother in my eyes, just from like a kind of physical perspective. I mean, he's stabbing everybody in sight. He takes no prisoners. And I think low-key, he kind of won, the final battle
they're
as well.
cousins.
Yeah, true. And well, that's
Well, maybe they're brother cousins. I guess there's that.
yeah,
Possibility.
going to the bad, I definitely have some issues with that. I don't understand why that's a thing. But just like the specific line where Timmy's like, may thy knife chip and shatter. And then he's like, may thy knife chip and shatter. I feel like he's just reacting to a ton of stuff and having a lot of fun, which I love. And him kissing Stellan Skarsgård is
Yeah.
iconic.
and apparently improvised, like the second kiss. He is having a great time chewing up the scenery. He knows what movie he's in. That, like you said, the Gady Prime, Harkonnen entrance planet sequence is incredible. That was all shot in infrared. The cinematographer for this movie, Greg Fraser, got to shout him out, doing incredible work here, as he's been known to do. And he shot the first movie, he shot the Batman. They shot on location. They went to a real fucking desert. They went to North Africa and they shot in a desert. And they that does a lot of the work for you. You're creating a lot of stuff, but just like being in a real place and connecting with actors and connecting with the scenery does wonders. And this movie looks beautiful, looks incredible. The eclipse sequence, parts of that, they shot a real eclipse because one day there was an eclipse where they were at. Like stuff like that is what makes the movie feel so, tactile.
I mean, shout out to the cinematographer. Obviously, this is immaculate work. I feel like some other Denis movies, like you mentioned, Arrival and Blade Runner, are similar, which I think are, well, Blade Runner was Deakins. I think Arrival is somebody else, but he definitely
Arrival's
has
Fraser, I think.
Nice. Okay. I mean, that makes sense because this movie is absolutely beautiful.
We've literally had this conversation so many times.
Yeah.
We're always like, who shot Arrival? And then I always forget, and then I look. And I see is Bradford Young, and then we're like, oh yeah, it's Bradford Young, and you're like, what did Bradford Young shoot? And you're like, really, nothing else. It's kind of strange.
Maybe you can just kind of make any cinematographer elite. Obviously, Deakins is already at the level, so shout out to him. But I mean, this movie,
Fraser shot a favorite of yours, Kody, Lion, as well as he shot The Creator, which does look beautiful. Zero Dark 30, Rogue One. He's done some
beautiful movies as well. A lot of good water shots in all his movies. So him and Gareth Edwards work well together. But another visual thing, I guess, kind of just bouncing off that, which I love, and we talked a little bit about, is the worm riding. And I mean, obviously the OG scene of Timmy riding for the first time, I think it's just so fun and so good. There's a ton of tension. I mean, even when he kind of summons this massive worm, Stilgar is like, no, not that big. And then I mean, I think it maybe is extended out a little bit of him like jumping onto it and trying to find his footing. But just that moment and the score too is kind of perfect with it, where he kind of stands up and everybody's kind of cheering. I think it's just really good filmmaking and really I don't know, like honestly, I don't know how you do that. I don't know how you make worm riding like realistic and really cool.
A lot of fans.
And then, like I said, too, I mean, fast forward to the end, they literally rely on worms into battle and take out, the Emperor's, best troops of all time.
Sardaukar.
The worms are just utilized 10 times better than the first one. I thought in the first one, they're just like, oh, like, I don't really understand, like, why they're even here or a thing. But kind of the payoff in the sequel is just amazing.
Desert power. That's what it's all about, baby. The fucking worms. Any other good, Kody?
That was pretty much it. Also, one last scene I wanted to mention too with my boy Dave. The scene where he's pissed off, Timmy's making moves, they start bombing everything and it gets real smoky. And then they're walking up and all the Fremen start taking them out by like one-on-one. And Dave just books it the hell out of there. I think just from a character moment, just like showing the cowardness in the Harkonnens, I think is really, really cool from a story perspective. Just because like you just see these guys as like such bad guys the entire time. You don't see them ever having fear. That it's just anger. It's pure anger, even when things aren't going their way. They're chopping up their own. They're saying, move up the ranks because we're gonna get it done one way or another. I think seeing
eating
like,
them even.
Yeah, true. Grossly. But I think seeing, supposedly the guy in charge, Dave Bautista, succumbing to fear and literally just
turn and run.
I think it's pretty awesome. So shout out to that scene as well.
Every action set piece leading up to that one is just like incredible. It's like the opening of the red, the eclipse, and they're in the desert and the floating, and then
the floating suits is crazy.
And then the first, like I said, the first harvester, and then there's the harvester with where they find Gurney Halleck and the smoke scene. Like it's just the progression is incredible, and like you said, the Dave Bautista getting more and more pissed off more and more pissed off until, he loses his shit and then gets into deep water and runs fucking scared and almost, dies, and then has to, go to
Kiss the boots.
his daddy, uncle. I don't know the relationships there exactly, but the Baron is gone and Fade Routha is over.
Club Daddy Uncle. I think that's a couple of people. But yeah, I mean, we didn't even mention too, like that opening sequence all together with the snipers and people just falling from the sky. I think that's a great sequence as well. Like I said, the first kind of hour and a half is so much just like fun on the ground, sort of war stuff. And then the second half is more kind of the bigger picture, kind of, Game of Thrones, gaining power stuff that I really like too. So I think that's a really fun blend for kind of a 3 hour movie.
Jumping over to the bad, Kody, do you think it does enough to fully show the turn that like Paul and Rebecca make?
Yeah.
Because I would say maybe no.
I would say no as well. And that was something I was foreshadowing for too. Of like, that was the big thing in my first watch. Like after I had watched the movie and I was thinking about it more, I was like, I didn't really realize, at that moment when he drank the worm piss or whatever it is, like he does change into a completely new character. Like old Paul, I feel like is dead at that moment. And that's not something that I don't think I realized on the first watch because I mean, I like that though too. Like it's not as much like, telling you. It's show not tell, I guess I think is the phrasing there. But I on the first watch, that kind of went over my head a little bit, which, you know, could be not effective, but I think it's definitely, like I said, maybe just a longer cut would help with that. But I think it's definitely on purpose from me.
It is tough because like to simplify things, you just kind of have to make the motivations a little bit more direct. I think it does a decent job. It sets up that like Paul's really out for revenge. That's like the early idea that his dad died, like he's trying to get revenge, so he's going to do whatever it takes. And if that means, maybe taking control of Spice, maybe controlling the Fremen, he'll do that. And then Rebecca is, I mean, what is her hope here? Like her entire family's dead, her husband's dead. It's just her and Paul on this planet, and she wants what's best for her child. So her idea is, okay, I'm going to plot my way to get him into power. And so then they're both plotting. And of course, when she takes the worm piss, she's like full evil. She's also got the child inside of her, which added a whole nother layer. There's this whole like abomination thing. It's very dangerous and blah, 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 whatever. Anya Taylor-Joy is speaking. But something that I really love on the second watch and third watch that I've identified is like this idea of I'll love you as long as I breathe, and then he stops breathing and he dies, and that relationship really feels like it ends there. And I think that's a distinct decision that was made here that I like. Where in the book, Chani kind of just like stays with him and is basically becomes his concubine next to him marrying the princess, which is Florence Pugh's character, which is a weird decision. Now, of course, that's maybe some more like older school politics ideas that would fit into like a Game of Thronesy world. But I think the update feels more modern and again helps with the POV of like Paul's not necessarily in the right here at the end.
I agree. I like that change too, just because I think it strengthens Chani's character a ton. I think if they went down that route, people would see it as a little bit disrespectful, I think, in today's culture a lot. And like I said, dude, it's a nice POV being like, yeah, this guy's not really a good guy. Like he's definitely doing things that I guess the worm piss changed him, obviously, but that is fun too. Like it is true, he did stop breathing. I mean, the whole prophecy thing in that moment, I guess that's where I'm most,
Desert Spring.
yeah, I mean, that's kind of where I'm most bought in. Like, how does Zendaya's tears, cure this guy or whatever? But maybe it's just like he just needed water or something, and or a little bit of salt, I guess, from her tears. I don't know, but that's the biggest thing for me that kind of is pointing like, yeah, maybe he's the Messiah. So shout out to that too, just kind of leaving hanging threads. But some other bad I want to talk about, and kind of going along with that already. I mean, the visions I want to talk about specifically, because I feel like in the first Dune, that was definitely one of my strengths. I really like kind of the in-depth visions when he first kind of, got in contact with the spice. I thought that was super vivid. But his visions in like the first, couple hours in here are kind of just like splicing all over the place, and they're not like super long. It's like 2 seconds each, then it kind of goes in and out. But once like the water one or the Life of Water ones, whatever it's called, hit, like that one with Anya Taylor-Joy and like the ocean and in the middle of the desert, I thought was really good. But I don't know. Like I said, I mean, I feel like with a longer cut, maybe in this movie, you could have just added a little bit more juice. Give me a little bit more Jameis, I think,
I
overall.
love that stuff. The Jamis
Yeah.
stuff is probably one of my favorite parts.
But I just felt like the early visions were kind of one of the weaker things, and kind of just like him being scared of starting a holy war. I feel like if you had like a really like vivid one at the beginning, kind of a really scary one, it just would have been more effective.
I do agree there's just like a kind of a change. In the first movie, the visions are a little bit more drawn out. And even though they don't necessarily all come true, we just get to see a little bit more of them. So we understand the parallels. And then you get moments in this movie where like Zendaya's fighting and she does the same flip that he does in his vision. And those are cool mirroring. And we don't really get as much of that in this second half.
Yeah, that is my favorite of the division callbacks for sure. Some other couple things. I mean, we already mentioned the whole Harkonnen grandpa thing, so we can definitely wrap into that. But that is my biggest gripe, I think, in this movie. I don't really understand why it's in here or why it needs to be in here. So the whole timeline is Stellan Skarsgård, the main Harkonnen, is Rebecca Ferguson's dad. So that means that Paul Atreides is his grandson, and then him and Austin Butler are cousins. Um, Pretty stupid. I mean, I guess it connects them to another like, high family, the whole Game of Thrones thing.
The reveal is so just like, oh, that seems random. But it like makes sense, and like they're just like trying to mix the bloodlines to create the Kwazak Haderach or whatever. But like
It makes sense with the Bene Gesserit. Like that's something they would do too. Like that makes sense.
but
I don't know.
I agree. It is shoehorned in. I'll throw out. I don't really think the Anya Taylor-Joy stuff works for me, and it is a very tough situation. I've watched the 80s Lynch movie, and they do what technically is happening in the text, and they just have like a little kid playing the character, and it's a child who's like a child with an adult brain, and it doesn't really work, and you would have to find a very good actress to pull that off, and you would also have to change the timeline. This movie takes place over like 9 months basically, so you would have to adjust things there. I just don't know. The womb, the baby talking from inside the womb is the thing that on the first watch most was like, what? I don't know about this, especially because it's not even really in the source.
Yeah. And I think that's similar too with it's got to just be setting something up for the next movie. I mean, why would they bring in Anya Taylor-Joy if she's not going to be like a massive player in the third one? So,
I mean, it definitely is setting up a lot for sure.
which is weird because obviously it's kind of the second half of the first part of a movie and then it's setting up another movie. So it is what it is, but I can overlook those. My other big one I wanted to mention here quickly too. So, Chani's friend, her Fremen friend from the beginning, I don't even know her name or anything. I feel like her character has a really weird ending in where, I mean, she's there the entire time. They're taking on the Harkonnens, where they're winning all these battles. And then when Austin Butler comes in and kind of
She's
blows up,
Shockley.
Shockley, yeah. When he comes in and blows up, obviously, kind of their main spot with the sacred pool, they obviously flee south. But she stays behind for no reason and gets killed off for no reason. And I feel like her and Chani together could have been like a strong duo, being like, this guy sucks. Like, what are you guys talking about? So kind of taking her out of the picture, I guess, was again maybe another kind of tactical move from Paul Loki. But I thought she kind of just deserved better as a character because I did like her.
I 100% agree with you, especially the way it like cuts to it. It's just like, oh, she's been captured and now
Yeah,
she's gonna get burnt alive, I guess is the
you didn't even see
implication, but
her
we don't even see
like
it
get
yet.
captured. Yeah,
it,
stupid.
it is strange. You just kind of have to explain that away. Again, it's moving very fast paced. You have to kind of close up all the threads. I'll shout out another bad thing that we've kind of alluded to: Stephen McGinley Henderson and Tim Blake Nelson getting cut out of the movie. I guess it, for editing sake, it probably is better, but like that's my guy, Purdue graduate, Ladybird man, Civil War guy. Shout out to him, and of course Dr. Pendansky from Holes as well. We could have seen him doing fucking navigator shit, and
He's really good in
we didn't get
Ladybird.
it.
So shout out. But I wonder what Tim Blake Nelson's role was too. I don't even know. It was probably something wacky
They were
and
hanging out. I know that. They cut them
okay.
out together.
He's probably just with him. They're probably a good pairing. But yeah, I thought it was interesting because obviously bringing Brolin back, I feel like you could have just had those two characters like with him, and it would have had kind of the same effect. So It must have been an entirely different story beat or something. But like we said, I definitely want to see those scenes released at some point.
I like the Gady Prime sequence a lot. The one thing that doesn't work for me is the crowd. It's so CGI. It looks so fake. And I think maybe the infrared makes it look worse because you can tell it's like these are not real people that they filmed. They just inserted all these like digital, like it just doesn't look great. The scene of Paul walking through the crowd, those are legit all actors and they shot that real. But like in the Gady Prime sequence, you can tell like this was flubbed. Because I mean it's a fake space. I understand why they did it. They couldn't obviously film that arena. It doesn't exist. It's a fake planet, but it is probably the worst looking part of the movie is just the specific crowd shots. Agree or disagree?
No, I back that. I would agree. I think just like visually, that's definitely not the best work in the film. I agree too. That shot of him walking to the crowd, like I mentioned, is probably one of my top three shots in the entire movie. I love that. Um, Also, I wanted to ask, what do you think about those people dressed in black with like the devil heads or whatever?
They
It's
kind of
kind
look like xenomorphs, is what I was thinking. I was getting big alien vibes. I mean, I'm excited for Romulus, but they fucked with the fight, dude. What, like,
I know.
he's just trying to have a fair fight with two drugged guys and one not drugged guy, and they're coming in with their fucking feather. It's kind of like a BDSM item. I don't know.
I like that too because Austin Butler's like screaming at him to stay back and stuff. So I feel like it just shows the intensity of his character and him like laughing when
He's
he's
like
like the knife right in front of his face.
barking at them. Yeah.
Yes, absolute psycho. But that scene's still awesome, even with a little bit of weird visuals there.
My favorite part of that scene is fucking Stellan Skarsgård's whatever he's chiefing on. Just he's having a good time enjoying the show.
He keeps going, "Happy birthday." Classic from Stellan.
Thoughts on the atomics, Kody?
Yeah, I wanted to bring that up. Actually, that was going to be in my ugly.
Mm.
Because I feel like Brolin, I don't know. I feel like I don't really need him in this movie a ton either. I think it's nice to have like another person from the OG one kind of being there to kind of push Paul and be like, bro, we got slaughtered. You gotta do something about
The
this.
devil on his shoulder a little bit.
Yeah, yeah. But the nukes is interesting. I mean, just hiding them in plain sight. I mean, how many was it? It was like 90 something prime
It's a
video.
very specific number.
It was a ridiculous amount, and I think they used like three or four just to kind of take aback the emperor's troops and stuff. But I don't know. Of course, you're going to have a massive explosion in a movie like this, but I don't think you need like a whole arsenal of nukes just out of nowhere. It's kind of a little bit Deus Ex Machina, I feel like.
It's tough. I mean, it's a source thing. It's something that's like mentioned really early on in the book as a seed. I don't think they say anything about it in the first movie, which is kind of where it
Yeah.
loses me, where it's like if they maybe set this up a little bit better, these ideas, then I could be more okay with it. But then we'd probably also be complaining that like, oh well, there's the fucking nukes that the Chekhov's nukes are finally getting used. There it's always a trope, right? But their use is effective. Like, I like it. I like an explosion.
Yeah, I mean that shot of the explosion is sick with Timmy behind it. And that is a new film school thing I learned recently. Chekhov's gun. That little reference. Great use in Challengers. One of my favorite Chekhov guns, I think, of all time in that movie. So shout out back to that.
Tennis
But
racket, I think. Chekhov's tennis racket.
oh yeah, oh yeah. But yeah, that's definitely my ugly, kind of just like bringing nukes out of nowhere. And then I feel like there's not a ton of ugly in here. I mean, I guess did you have any other bad too before kind of jumping ship entirely?
Um, Last thing I'll say for the bad, Timmy and Zendaya, there's like an interesting accent. They just talk like us. And I think it works, but I can see
Especially
why.
Zendaya.
Yeah, especially Zendaya. Like, there's no like she's just using her regular voice, and I think it works really well for her character because the idea is she is supposed to be again the POV character, the youth point of view, the non-Southern fundamentalist. She's Gen Z of the Fremen culture. But it is interesting to see when you've got like it's a distinct choice to keep it the same. And even in the language, they say like shit and there's some just like cursing that's interesting in the kind of the dialogue. I think I'm okay with it for Zendaya, but I don't think it really works or makes sense for Timmy's character for him to just sound like, oh, I'm Timmy Chalamet from New York.
Yeah, I mean it's understandable. I feel like from my perspective, like even going back to like MCU movies in general, like I prefer Elizabeth Olsen with, her normal English voice versus her stupid like, Russian accent or whatever. I would
Yeah,
rather that they just like be themselves
fair.
than trying to like do an Austin Butler thing and maybe like missing on an accent, which I feel like is just super noticeable if you do that. So understandable, but just less work for these awesome actors who are so beautiful. They don't need to be that good of actors, Korbin. Come on. They're hot.
Well, Kody, let's talk about the ugly with that comment. No. I'll start with this idea that's kind of a Frank Herbert thing, and I don't know how much validity it's there is to it, but in this movie, it's very clear the evil characters have like gayness associated with them, and there is some like ideas and thinking that Herbert had homophobia. His son, I think, is a gay man, and like he wasn't really accepting of that, and like the only people in these books and then of course as a result the movie who like are men that would kiss are the evil, terrible, disgusting Harkonnens. And that like obviously in the context of the writing is bad. I don't think that really translates at all to this movie. Like I don't get this as like a anti-gay agenda or there's really anything homophobic about these characters kissing in the moment, but I think it is something to note and an idea just to like think about and consider.
Definitely a good point, and one I didn't even think of. But yeah, I mean, old books, yeah, always gonna have stuff like that. I feel like, which is unfortunate. But yeah, I mean, obviously, don't think it plays too much in this movie, but definitely an important thing to point out there. And I mean, like I said, ugly. I feel like we're not getting nitpicky anyways, so I think that is a pretty good one. I actually, this is kind of a joke, but my big ugly is I already mentioned this scene, but when Timmy is telling the main Ben and Gesserit girl, silence. He's kind of just, silencing the most powerful woman, in the galaxy. So I'm not fully on board with that. I don't really agree with that. So pretty ugly there from Mr. Atreides.
Let her speak. Let
Yeah,
let
let the
let
women
Ramp
speak.
let Rampling say what she has to say. I'm sure it was going to be nothing but great stuff. Last thing I'll hit. Movie got pushed because of the strikes, as we mentioned. Fuck all the executives that like caused that to happen, right? Like, there's no reason this movie should have had to premiere in March. Now, it would have been a really tough Oscar season and it would have been a tough, like, it would have drastically changed like what last year was. And it, like, the beginning of this year would have been way fucked up with movies. But like, this movie deserved to be released last year. And the only reason it didn't was because of corporate greed. And I can say that very plainly.
Yeah, 100%. I agree with you there. It is insane too, because I mean, 2023 would have been absolutely banging if Dune Part 2 came out in December as scheduled. So maybe it kind of worked out because it spaces out really good movies. But yeah, it's stupid that it even got delayed in the first place. So I definitely agree.
Any other ugly?
I mean, it's mostly also around like Austin Butler. Like, why does he kind of slaughter those girls in the beginning? I don't really know. He's a bad guy and he's a dick. It's a cool intro, but I feel like he's kind of just like killing a lot of his own people with, isn't really necessary, especially when you're losing a war. You kind of need bodies. And also they killed Dave Bautista off in this movie. So that's an absolutely disgusting act. He deserves better. Yeah.
That's the biggest atrocity of
Yeah.
them.
How dare you, Denis?
Let's take a quick break and we'll be right back. Thanks for listening to the episode. You can follow the rest of our happenings over here at Kody and Korbin Have a Podcast on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok at KHAP Podcasts, KHAPODCAST. Please follow us on Spotify, give us a rating, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and follow along for more. And we're back with Welcome to the Academy. Once again,
I'm going for the Oscar this year.
we're here. We're giving out our
Season
awards.
7.
Before we give out any awards, Kody, how many Oscar nominations will Dune receive?
Ooh, okay. So in my head, I say we just count them out a little bit too. So best picture, yeah, there's one. Best director, there's two in my book. Going to acting, I like best supporting actor for Austin Butler.
Oh, you think this is I think where we get into a sticky situation. Will
okay, let's stick with technicals
nominations
then.
happen?
Let's stick with technicals for a second. So I mean, I think cinematography, it's there. I don't know. You think editing? Maybe. Score. I think score is there. The score is amazing. I don't think you can leave that out. So I think that's in. I don't know. Maybe do you think production design or costume design? Either one of those, really? I don't know. Probably not.
I'll throw out the ones it was nominated for last time.
Yeah.
Picture, adapted screenplay,
Okay.
original score, sound, production design, cinematography, makeup, hairstyling, costume design, editing, visual effects. So basically, everything below the line it got nominated for, which I think is likely to happen again. I don't think it'll miss out on any of those. Maybe makeup or hairstyling or costume design.
I mean, the Harkonnen makeup is really really good though. So yeah, maybe just throw it in all the technicals and then going over to the acting. I don't know. I mean, the fact that this movie is coming out, in March or whatever is very tough. But I don't know. I think Timmy does get a nod. I don't know if I would. It really just depends how good the movies are that come out the rest of this year. I think right now, obviously, I would give him a nod. I'd give Austin Butler a nod. Maybe throw in Zendaya. I don't know. You could put her best supporting, I guess. I think Timmy and Austin Butler would be. I think Austin Butler should be a lock, and I think Timmy probably will get a nod.
My prediction, if there's an acting nom, we get like a Javier Bardem or a Rebecca Ferguson. Like
I don't think
like
Rebecca.
an like but it's it's the Oscars, right? Role in a big movie, but I think those would be the two. I don't think if Zendaya gets an Oscar nom, it's for Challengers. I don't think it's happening for that either. But like
I don't think she will.
that Butler, I don't think he's getting it. If he does, maybe it's for bike riders. Timmy, I just don't think he's getting it.
I think Bardem is a good shout too of a possible one. I think Butler does have a better chance. It really just depends. I mean, I like on my radar, I don't think there's a ton of like, massive main performances that are gonna be, insanely good. Obviously, you got like Joaquin, on the radar, maybe Paul Mescal or somebody in Gladiator 2 or something. But I don't know. From my perspective, I mean, it's freaking March, so we can say whatever we want. But I predict he'll get a nom, but we'll see. Probably not.
Denis did not get nominated for Best Director. That's the big place that I think he's gonna slot in, and this will at least one up the previous. I think we're getting at least 11 nominations. Is my prediction, maybe 12.
I can see it. I mean, with how good this movie is too. I mean, do you think it has a good chance of like, sweeping the majority of this?
Man, it's a long time till the Oscars, Kody. It's a long way off.
I'm calling a clean sweep right now.
And there's a lot of talk of like, is this the Return of the King? Is this Dune Messiah is a very different book. There's passages in that text where it's like, hey, Genghis Khan, he killed 4 million people. Hitler, he killed 6 million. We killed 91 billion. Aren't we pretty fucking cool? Like, those guys are chumps. So like, a little bit harder thing to sell is like, this is a big sci-fi epic. This one might be the most palatable thing and the best chance it has. I don't know. I hope they award it. But I want to see the rest of the movies out this year, Kody.
Yeah, just a few at least. Did you have any other specific awards you wanted to give this film?
I wanted to say best location scouting. I love a good desert. They just found the dunes that looked perfect. They're really not that great, but it's good stuff. And then best innovation in cinematography is the award I wanted to give for that infrared sequence. I think that stuff is just incredible. And again, it's like nothing I've really seen before.
Yeah, mine was kind of centered around that too. I wanted to give it the award for the coolest fireworks, and it was on that Harkonnen planet, and it's just like it's like the splotch thing with the Rorschach face or whatever. It's kind of just like fireworks that look like that when it goes off. I thought that was so dope, just kind of from a creative and visual perspective. So shout out to a lot of just the kind of idea people on this movie, because I think they knocked it out of the park in a lot of aspects.
Fireworks were invented in China centuries ago, and I think to myself every 4th of July, this shit's the same. What innovation have we discovered in the firework world? And then I watch Dune Part 2 and I'm like, fuck, he gave us new firework ideas.
Should we start the Splash Fireworks Factory? I mean, who's not going to buy that? That's a gold mine.
Get sponsored by the Nintendo game Splatoon.
Get sponsored by Dave. He still hasn't responded to me on Instagram, so tough.
Hit him up again. Well, his agent maybe. Invite, fight, night.
You gotta be my podcast.
You want to fight, dickless?
Wow, thanks. My knight in shining armor.
Kody, who do you want to invite on the pod?
Yeah. So it's tough. I kind of have two answers. And it's kind of the main Atreides here. I kind of want God mode Paul Atreides on the pod. Kind of get his perspective on, I want a deep dive. I want, him being like straight up, are you the Messiah? Do you think you're the Messiah? Or are you just kind of playing games? So I kind of just want to question him. But I think also a really fun guest would be, the Rebecca Ferguson, Anya Taylor-Joy duo.
Mm.
I mean, she'd be in the womb at that time. And I mean, we're going to have a conversation with everybody. So I think that would be really fun too, because she would kind of be the middleman, just relaying messages between us and Anya Taylor-Joy, which would be fun.
Big 2001 Space Odyssey vibes with Anya Taylor-Joy there. Yeah. I don't want that anywhere near our podcast. And if I do, I need to take some spice before.
Hey, we could probably arrange that. Yeah. I'm on.
Might be a hot take, but I'm here for the content. I'm gonna bring in Gurney Halleck. I know you're kind of a hater, but listen, he's got his little guitar thing. He's a song man. He's got poetry. I think the spoken word is an art to him, and this is a podcast. Let's have him on.
Yeah, back it. Roland's pretty entertaining. I think it'd be fun to talk about how he ended up like smuggling spice, sort of just
who knew there were spice smugglers, Kody?
Not me. I didn't even, the first time I watched it, I missed that line too. I didn't even know what he was doing on that thing. And it's like I was like, oh, he's smuggling. That's kind of cool. But yeah, his character is kind of, like I said, maybe not the most useless in this movie, or not the most useful in this movie. But he'd be a fun guest. I like Brolin a lot in this role.
Fight, Kody. Who you fighting?
Somebody we haven't talked a ton about. I'm going after Mr. Christopher Walken. Two mice. That was terrible. You might have got that. But
two mice fell in a bucket of cream.
I mean,
there you go. I did a worse impression for you, Kody.
That's pretty good. My main beef here is like I don't understand his motivations from the first movie really. He talks about like why he took out Oscar Isaac, Leto, and he's like he was a weak man who followed his heart. It's like, okay, that doesn't mean you have to kill him. Like I don't he wasn't making moves against you or anything yet. So I kind of just want like more motivations behind this Emperor character. I thought maybe that was a little bit underwritten too. And yeah, I kind of wish he got, stabbed at the end. So I just want to take a lick at it myself. Yeah.
I was hoping we could save any walk-in hate for the recast, but just know it's
I did
coming.
Recast him as well. Yeah, it's I did.
I'm gonna fight Paul. I know it's a losing battle, but I think we need to stop the jihad. He killed Fade Routha, and then if I fight Paul and just take him out of the equation, maybe things are better. Here's an idea. Maybe the Fremen people should be led by themselves.
Craziness. You're going too far there, man. I don't know. Also, are we giving you some worm piss before the fight, or what are we thinking?
Yeah, it's got to be a fair fight. I mean, come on. Still suit and all. Night. I'm gonna go Chani. Again, she leaves at the end. She stands up to his bullshit about I'll love you as long as I breathe, but let me go marry Florence Pugh real quick. Which, hey, okay, but I'm gonna Night Zendaya.
Hey, you gotta respect the game, but Chani was my Night as well here. I couldn't, because on the rewatch too, I was trying to remember after the slap occurs, after he drinks the worm piss, I couldn't remember if they had any other lines the entire movie. And then, of course, right at the end battle, he pulls out that bullshit again and is like, oh, I love you as long as I breathe. And I was like, fuck you, dude. So, yeah, shout out Shani. She kind of got, drugged through it a little bit in this movie. But I do like her arc altogether. And the other small night I had as well was the Desert Rat. Shout out to, what is it? Muad'Dib, yeah. We haven't even said Lisa Nagaib. Lisa Nagaib. Probably not had a Lisa Nagaib yet, but yeah, I love the Desert Rat. I love the setup with that too, where they're hiding in that first spice raid, and this Desert Rat is just messing with Timmy's kind of breathing apparatus while they're all hiding. I love that little connection. And obviously him wanting that to be kind of his Fremen nickname and stuff. So shout out to the little Desert Rat as well. That guy's awesome.
Is it too many names? Can a man have too many names?
It's a lot. I mean, I can't even pick them up off the spot here, and they're iconic. So it's a lot. You also have what is it? Ulyss? Something
Usul.
like Usul. I was close. Ulyss. Keep that in. But yeah, Usul. That's probably the weakest of the four, I think, for sure.
The recast, Kody.
What are you?
I'm Batman.
I'm Batman.
I'm Batman.
I'm Batman.
Because I'm Batman.
I'm Batman.
I am vengeance. I am the night. I am Batman.
Hey, I'm Batman. No, dude, no, I'm Batman.
We're coming for Christopher Walken. What are you thinking, man?
He's my only recast this week. I think
Me too. Me too. It's well deserved. I do have two choices.
Nice. Okay. So I have one. Actually, you have two. Kick us off with one.
Okay. Well, I went for a living and dead. So
Nice.
dead, Max von Sydow, our guy. You know, Walken is not menacing to me, and that's the big thing. You get to the end of this movie, and I could have said this in the bad, but I wanted to save it here for the end of this pod, where it's just like Walken, I think, is fine in the one-on-one scenes with Florence Pugh early on, but when he's there at the end, there's no menace. And maybe you can say that's a part of the character, that he's just kind of a goof of a king of an emperor. But in this world, I just don't quite buy that. Like, I think he needs to be a guy who seems like he had power at once, or would have been a guy you actually fear. Like, why did the Sardaukar follow this fool? I love Walken. I love the two mice, but he does not work here. And I think someone like von Sydow, or what do you got, Kody?
No, I think von Sydow's a great pick. My pick, I'm going with the GOAT, Anthony Hopkins.
I considered it.
There's a couple episodes back where he had picked him for something, and I was berating you because he's just the obvious pick for everything. But he would have been awesome in this role. I agree too. You just need somebody with a bit more menace. I feel like at the end in those scenes, Walken's he's just like kind of standing there. Like he's not there to kind of show off his acting chops, I don't think. And this would be a really fun role for somebody to dig their teeth in, of like a severely, insane and deeply kind of hateful person to, wipe out a family for kind of unknown reasons. But he's kind of just there. And like I said, Walken's Walken. You can't really hate on the guy. But I think Anthony Hopkins would have gone absolutely ballistic with it, which would have been fun.
Would he have been better in the Skarsgård role?
Walken or Anthony Hopkins?
Hopkins. Throw Hopkins in the Skarsgård.
I think he'd be good at that too. I don't want to replace Stellan Skarsgård though. I think that guy's awesome. But Hopkins, I mean, you could put him in most of these. He could be Dave Bautista's role, and he would be a badass too. So I'm on board.
I fired up the popular Netflix film Rebel Moon Part 2, The Scargiver, a couple days ago.
Let's do that. Yeah.
It's a good question. I don't really have a great answer. I did realize that Netflix allows you to watch things at 1.5 speed. So I think that's fair considering all the slow motion, like, make it a little bit more like you're watching it at normal speed. But the opening of the film, Anthony Hopkins just tells you what happens in part 1. So if you need to skip it, you got 2 minutes of exposition of like a slow pan on a spaceship as Hopkins tells you a bunch of shit that happened by using names that you do not recognize and will not be able to associate with characters later on. But he's letting you know.
That's awesome. Shout out A-Hop.
He plays a robot. Ed Harris was my other pick, Kody.
Okay. Interesting.
Love Lies Beating. If you haven't seen that, go check that one out. He plays a very creepy and menacing role. I don't really necessarily want that energy. I'm thinking more like Snowpiercer energy. I think that would be really great in this. Just plotting.
That is a super interesting choice. I'm on board with it. I mean, Ed Harris can definitely be menacing. And I don't know. Are you getting like old man makeup with him? How old is he now? He's got to be getting up there, I guess. But
I think he could. I mean, I think he could just play himself.
I feel like Walken is just ancient. Like he feels so old.
Walken's 81.
Yeah, I mean, maybe that's kind of what's leading into it as well. He's kind of just tired.
Harris is 73.
Okay, so they're actually close enough. God damn it, Harris is getting old. He looked damn good in Snowpiercer. But yeah, I like
10
that
years
film.
ago.
It was a long time ago. But good actor. Shout outs to The Truman Show as well. I think one of my favorite performances of his.
And then finally, Kody, the rating. What are we going to give this movie out of 69?
As you proceed through the poetry in this book, practice this rating method.
Yeah, I mean, I said this off the top, but I do think for me this is a 5-star movie. Like I said to you, I mean, there are some definite flaws in here that are things I don't love, which bumps it down a little bit. It's tough out of 69. I'm thinking a 65. I mean, that's still a 5-star, right? That
Yeah,
that should, that should slot in with, some of my pretty good movies. So I'll go with 65 out of 69.
I think that's very fair. I'll just shout out that you gave the original Dune a 54, so you're really
Nice.
bumping it up here.
That's fair.
Um, Other 65s for you. Catch Me If You Can. Shout out to the two mice. Goodwill Hunting, The Departed, and Shawshank Redemption.
Nice. I think I would rate all of those movies other than Shawshank higher than Dune Part 2. So I think that's a fair spot for it.
Interesting that you say that because Shawshank was kind of the measuring stick that I was using for this. This is right
Nice.
below it for
Okay.
me. But a 63 out of 69, Shawshank's the only other one that has that. Right below it, The Departed.
Heck yeah. Another great movie.
Damn rat,
Classics.
man.
Those damn rats.
Next, we'll move on to our new little mini game to wrap things up, talking about Dune. Tomato, tomato.
Well, tomato, tomato, tomato. I'm throwing tomatoes.
We're going to pick a random number from 1 to 10. I'm going to generate right now. And we got 7.
Wait, the characters, it should be a tomato, tomato, no?
Tomato, tomato.
Tomato, tomato. That's dope.
Tomato, tomato.
I get the right.
We're going to go to the 8th person listed on the IMDb page.
Oh, okay.
And that person is none other than Dave Bautista. Cody, that is a fucking beauty.
7.
Beautiful way to
kicking it off with a banger. Tomato, tomato. Shut up, my boy Dave.
The way this game works. Go ahead,
Yeah.
Cody.
Okay. I mean, it's pretty simple in a sense. We already did the first part. We'll do a random number generator and just find an actor in whichever movie we're covering. And then for that specific actor, me and Korbin are competing against each other. And each of us are going to pick 2 movies. So we're trying to pick 2 movies that are farthest away on the tomato meter. And whoever has the biggest gap wins the game. Pretty simple.
So are we going to do this where we each have to select different movies in like maybe a back and forth style?
I think that is the most fun way to do it. Yeah, I'm
okay.
on board.
So since it's your guy, I think maybe I should get the first pick.
Kick it off. Kick it off, man.
And I'm gonna throw out Stuber as my first pick.
That's what I was thinking of as well. I think it's got to be pretty damn low, I would think, on the overall scale.
Coming in at a 42%.
I feel like I should know a lot of Dave movies here, but I didn't do a ton of research coming in. Let me think. Dave
You could pick high. You could start high. You could start low.
Oh, he's got a lot of good ones, I think, which will be easy. And I guess we can just go there and give me a bit more time to think. I will go with Blade Runner 2049. Obviously, another great Denis flick. I think that's got to be pretty high up there on the tomato meter.
Blade Runner 2049 is an 88%.
Okay. I thought it was in the 90s, which is tough, but probably should have just taken this movie, which is fun. But I mean, that's a hell of a movie. Definitely the upper echelon of Dave, I would say.
I like the idea that we went away from this one. This is the obvious pick. And I could go Dune 1 as well, but that's too obvious. I'm going to take Avengers Infinity War as my scoop here.
That's a sneaky one, I think. That is good.
And it's an 85%. Ooh, Cody, the game is in your hands.
Not 90s. There's too much pressure now. Okay, so just brainstorming. I mean, other Dave movies. Obviously, we did not get The Cabin, which I feel like that wasn't the most respected one, but definitely not like 40%.
You need a movie that is a 45% or lower.
I mean, obviously, the Guardians movies. I had another one I was just thinking of that I forgot about. The James Bond. He was in Spectre, I believe, which wasn't a very good James Bond movie. I don't know if it's that low again.
You need a real stinker.
I think, Spectre's the one with Christoph Waltz. That one does suck, too. I think that one's probably like 50, 60%. There's got to be other bad Dave movies I'm just not thinking of. I just blocked them all in my mind. I mean, he's in Glass Onion. Um, what's some other early stuff he's in? Should I just say knock at the cabin and just let it ride and lose this week? Give me 10 more seconds.
I'll vamp for a second. If you haven't checked out our Knock at the Cabin episode, you should definitely listen to that one. Austin Nightenhauser, great guest. And I actually fully read that book, whereas I only read parts of Dune. So that conversation was even more in depth with literary analysis and, text-based critical thinking.
Big time book review on that one, which I like. There's some other shitty Dave movies I'm not thinking of. I'm just gonna go knock at the cabin and might take the loss this week in the opening.
Sadly, Knock at the Cabin has a 67%.
Right.
So,
I thought
a gap of only 21 for you there as opposed to my 43. My thought was My Spy. That's the movie I was thinking of, which does have a 48%. So it still wouldn't have done it for you, but
Dave's actually he's in a lot of good stuff. He doesn't have a ton of credits, which just makes it hard. But yeah, Stuber. I think the first pick there was an important one for you. So shout out season 7.
Highest rated movie, the Guardians of the Galaxy Holiday Special at a 94.
Wow. Okay, I thought about it for a second, taking it for low, but hey, man, Kevin Bacon, he's different. He brings in the viewers.
It is tied with an in-game as well. Escape Plan 2, Hades is a movie with a 7%. He's something called Heist, 30%. Riddick, okay. He was in 58%.
Jesus. Really nothing that bad.
What was the Zack Snyder movie? The shitty zombie one. Army of the Dead, 67%. Not terrible. So
nothing really noticeable that I've missed big. So that makes me feel a little bit better. But
yeah, I mean, a bunch of movies I've never fucking heard of.
Riddick. I would have never remembered who's in that movie, but shout out Vin Diesel.
Definitely a lot more to have fun with on the higher end of things. Yeah. We're gonna finish off with our weekly watches, Kody.
How's the movie?
What movie?
I mean, a ton. I mean, how long of a layoff have we had? It's been probably a month and a half. Yeah. This month, I believe I watched somewhere over 30 films. So I won't go into all of them. I'll just touch on a couple of my favorite ones that I'd gone through. First off the bat, I checked out both Roadhouses. I'll tell you what, the original, I was very pleasantly surprised by. I actually really, really liked it. Obviously just a very movie of its time, but Swayze like ripping guys' throats out. A lot of karate action, Sam Elliott coming in, kicking some major ass. A really badass bar band. I was all on board with this movie. So I'd recommend that highly if you haven't seen it. But then I checked out the new
How does that compare to Breland, the country music artist who performs in the Gyllenhaal version?
It is no comparison. It's a joke. This new Roadhouse movie I was not a fan of. Something about just the action style. It's just complete CGI. Like Jake Gyllenhaal got buff for this, and it's just a CGI Gyllenhaal swinging against a CGI McGregor, which I don't really understand for the entire movie. So didn't like that. Also,
Kody has cats. He's been they've been going crazy the whole episode. He's really kept it in check well.
Yeah, if you hear him in the background, Jimmy and Jenny, they were fighting and stuff. So sorry about that. But yeah, Gyllenhaal's performance in Roadhouse, he's just he's smiling the entire time, and it freaking pisses me off, just his expression on his face. So would not recommend that. I think that's my least favorite of the movie, least favorite movie of the year so far, which is saying a lot. Wow. But some other random stuff too, I'll run through quick. Checked out Little Women, so kind of finished off Greta Gerwig's catalog for the Narnia flicks. I liked it a lot. I mean, obviously, kind of was a great young cast there. Love Florence Pugh. Saoirse Ronan, kind of super young snag, which is fun. And then great Bob Odenkirk coming in and kind of the second and third act with some great mutton chops. Shout out to him. Some other stuff too, actually. I watched some movies on a plane for the first time in a while. The first one I watched was Beetlejuice, the OG, which I'd never seen. I actually really, really liked it. I'm kind of pretty excited for the sequel.
You're in on the juice, man.
I am. The juice is loose. I mean, Keaton's amazing. Yeah, I like Winona Ryder too. I think she's kind of underrated altogether. And bringing in what's her face?
Jenna Ortega. Maybe she should have been the best star under 35.
True, I do like Jenna Ortega a lot, so I'm excited for the sequel. And then the other thing I checked out on the plane too, which honestly, out of everything I've watched, and I've watched a lot of good stuff, rewatched a lot of good stuff. A Quiet Place Part Two may be my favorite thing that I've seen this month. The first one I haven't seen in forever. I saw it in theaters, not with Corbin, right? Or with no, not with you. Yeah, I always said I watched it
I
with
think I
you,
was
but
in
it
high
was.
school when that movie came out.
So I checked out the
Sorry, I
sequel.
didn't fucking know you, Kody.
No, I think I saw it at Purdue my freshman year, which is
Yeah.
why I always mix it up. But I watched the second one on the plane on my phone. Holy shit, this movie is amazing. John Krasinski's direction is awesome. That opening sequence, kind of the meteors coming down, is so intense. And then you kind of put right back into the story. Cillian Murphy's there. I mean, he's fucking awesome. Who doesn't love Cillian Murphy? But specifically, too, the two child actors are maybe two of the best child actors I think we have working today. So be on the radar for them going forward. And the ending of the movie, I adore. I think it's kind of just like perfect arcs for both the kids, kind of just being like, screw this. We're gonna, save our own lives. We're kind of done being saved on our own. So honestly, like I said, everything I've seen, that's probably been my favorite thing, which I did not expect. And then lastly, too, kind of more recent thing, checked out Civil War in theaters. I feel like I've been a pretty big Alex Garland stan on the pod. I still haven't seen Men, putting that off. But I enjoyed Civil War a lot. I thought Kaylee Spanny specifically was pretty amazing. And definitely some things that I have issues with kind of plot wise and everything. But I mean, visually, I loved it. And if people are hating on it because, oh, it didn't take a stance on the Civil War, shut your stupid mouths. All right. I don't give it. I don't care. But I like that a lot. And hopefully it's not Garland. But, yeah. That's what I'll stick with today. We'll probably spread some stuff out as we go along here, but
I also didn't love Civil War.
it's fair.
I think the characterizations were pretty weak. I think there's some fucking awful dialogue in the movie and the writing.
Touch and stuff too. It's not perfect by any means.
From a visual standpoint, though, like Garland can direct a scene, and like there is some really good moments in there, and there are some interesting ideas. At the end of the day, I think it's opinion on journalists is a little questionable and like what its thoughts on their role is and how
But you're offended. You're offended.
No, I'm not offended. I was just like how maybe like how bloodlustful they are, like what their true intentions are in those situations. And like characters do not have to be good or honest in movies for me to like them necessarily, but like it's a lot of fucking morally reprehensible people, and it's like, who are the heroes in this situation? And I don't think there are any, which kind of sucks.
Yeah, I mean, I guess, but I mean, I feel like a lot of good movies don't have heroes, but fair enough. I mean, like I said, that movie's not gonna be for everybody. It's definitely kind of, I feel like you love it or you hate it in a sense too, which is always fun. But what's been some of your X, man? Obviously, it's been a while.
Well, Kody, I've been on a little bit of a Star Trek train. I've been trying to channel my inner you, my inner mom. I've watched the first 4 of the original Star Trek franchise, the motion picture, and then Wrath of Khan, Search for Spock, and The Voyage Home. The first one's pretty fucking boring. Like it's just slow as shit, and like the Enterprise. When you first see it, it's like we're gonna float around it for 5 minutes while the score plays, and it's very contemplative, and yeah, it's okay. The ending, I kind of like. I like the ideas, the Voyager satellite and kind of artificial intelligence, all that stuff. Interesting to me. Wrath of Khan, much more fun movie, much more over the top actiony based, but not even really, because it's just Ricardo Montalban and William Shatner yelling at each other on screens for the whole movie. They never once meet in person, which is insane. And then third one, man, Search for Spock. Oh, Spock's dead, so we got to go find him. Kind of weak. Didn't really love it. Nimoy's direction brings a little bit of an interesting angle to the series, but overall very forgettable. They recast the main other Vulcan chick, so it's just kind of annoying that they do that. Like, why?
I think Christopher Lloyd's in that one too, isn't he?
Yes, and then that is probably the highlight of that film is Christopher Lloyd doing an absolutely insane performance as what are those things called? Klingons. Yes,
Yeah,
as
the
as a
Klingon.
Klingon. Great Klingon there. And then the fourth one is fun because it's just like fish out of water Star Trek in San Francisco in the 70s, which, save the whales, dude. Who can't, who's got a problem with that? I'm sure James Cameron loves it.
True. He must have been a producer or something on that one. I think
Sure
that's my favorite. That's my favorite out of the OG4, just because it is so much fun. But Khan is iconic as well. You haven't checked out the Final Frontier yet?
Not yet. I've heard that's
It's
bad.
terrible. It's terrible.
Is that the one Shatner directed? Because I know he got, yeah.
It's a lot of religious themes in that one too, which will be fun after Dune. But yeah.
On top of that, I did watch the film Come and See, which is an 85 Russian film about like World War II and the Holocaust that Garland cited as like a big influence for him in making Civil War. And it is probably like one of the most famous anti-war films of all time. And it is just like a really fucked up, gripping movie. It's basically about this like child who wants to join the army, is forced to join the army, takes up in the army, and then just witnesses a series of horrific events, playing across kind of like the Russian countryside as they're fighting off against the Nazis. And the like transformation that this child actor takes from the beginning to the end of the movie, like through like makeup and hairstyling is really crazy and scary. And it's a much more effective film in its messaging than Civil War. It is kind of funny when it's like, oh, I made this movie, but I'm going to have fucking needle drops like it's Apocalypse Now. I don't know. Alex Garland, I think you're a little, who are you fooling, really? I don't know. And also the end of Civil War looks like Fury with the fucking laser cannon shooting in the White House. Like, I don't know.
You just hate Garland after that.
No, I like Garland. I do. Like, I'm a little bit of a men defender. I like Annihilation. We did a great pod, and Ex Machina,
I rewatched Ex Machina recently too. Really fucking good.
Also, I love I love his I love some of his early writing. Sunshine, 28 Days Later. Like, I think those are two fantastic works of science fiction. I don't know. I watched Monkey Man, Kody. I enjoyed that. Very impressive directorial debut for Dev Patel. Excited to see what he does next. Just a lot of like very real feeling combat. A lot of, like visceral hits. It's a little long. It gets a little bit lost in like the second, third act. There's some ideas about this culture of trans people that he encounters that is really interesting. And I wish they would have done even more with that stuff, but it just kind of occupies a little bit part of the story. And there's also a lot of political ideas that are there, but also have been kind of cut out and dulled down to kind of try and make this a more palatable movie. I know we've kind of talked about how like it went from Netflix to Universal. I think part of the reason Netflix kind of got it off of its plate was because of its political comparisons to real things happening in India today, and Netflix's fear of releasing a film like that now, and the climate in which there's actually international company that needs India to survive. I think that stuff's interesting to think about, and its journey to get to this place. But definitely a fun action movie for sure. And then on top of that, I saw Sasquatch Sunset, which was the Jesse Eisenberg, Riley Keough, Zellner brothers movie out of Sundance. Very strange, kind of gross and raunchy, but also pretty funny and pretty emotional, just about like life and death. And I can't say like Eisenberg's performance is incredible, memorable, or Keough's performances is like stand out, but Sasquatches, they look like Sasquatches running around, and that's fun. The last thing I got to see just a couple days after 420, I went and saw Dazed and Confused in a theater, and fantastic movie, fantastic episode of the pod as well. Go check that one out that we did a couple years ago.
Good plug.
Kody, it's been a fun welcoming of the new season 7, and
back.
Excited for more episodes to come. What's the next episode? It's your pick.
It's my pick. I don't know. We'll have to go into it. I definitely have a lot of fun choices. I think we could delve into, but I think definitely going to take a different directional turn from a little new release sci-fi. So we won't spoil anything, but definitely stay tuned. But yeah, a lot of fun stuff upcoming. And if it's gonna be my pick, I mean it's gonna be a banging episode. So yeah, no misses there.
Excited to see what you pick. Excited to see what the newer release is that we pair with it in tandem, and excited for a fun season.
True. Season 7, only way going up. I love it.
Stay
Six seasons in another season.
Peace.
What you just said is one of the most insanely idiotic things I have ever heard. At no point in your rambling, incoherent response were you even close to anything that could be considered a rational thought. Everyone in this room is now dumber for having listened to it.